26-year-old salesman Keenan Starnes is suing his ex-girlfriend, 20-year-old cashier Kristen Chinook, for having him falsely arrested for assault. Kristen is countersuing, claiming Keenan backed over her with his car.
All rise. This is case number 350 on the calendar in the matter of Starnes versus Chinook. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
You know what I find fascinating, Bird? I find it fascinating that people come here and they look as if butter could melt in their mouths. They're so sweet. I come outside and I look at this two little innocent faces, you know, they look like they belong on a postage stamp. And then you hear what they had to say about each other and what they did, and it's, you know, it's like everybody has two personalities. Fortunately, I get the nice personality, right? It is your claim, Mr. Starnes, that the defendant, who used to be your girlfriend, falsely accused you of hitting her with your truck. As a result of that, you had to spend money for lawyers, you had all kinds of aggravation. Did you spend any time in jail?
7 days.
7 days in jail. And you want her to compensate you for that. Ms. Chinook says that you did, in fact, have a hissy fit, maybe because she threw her shoes at your truck, which she did because she was angry. And she doesn't really remember the whole incident, but she does remember after she threw the slippers at your truck, she remembers seeing your taillights, and the next thing she knew, she woke up in the hospital. You say, I didn't do any of that. I don't know how she got there. Some other truck must have dropped out of the night sky and hit her. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. When did you and the defendant stop being boyfriend and girlfriend?
7/12/03.
Interesting that you remember the date. And you've, since that time, had some problem because she wants her CDs back.
Yes.
CDs that you either purchased together or you kept. So there's been an ongoing problem over these CDs. Is that right, Ms. Chinook?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the date of this alleged hit and run?
7/14, 7/15.
What took you so long to come to court?
The plaintiff, Keenan Starnes. We had a court date scheduled.
Because the criminal case was pending, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to wait for the criminal case to be over before you came to court.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you have a counterclaim for your medical bills.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, after you had these ongoing discussions with Ms. Chinook about the CDs and how she was going to get them back, you decided to go over to see her, or you stopped by her house. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Well, where did this incident happen with the slippers?
About, say, 2 miles from her house, at some mutual friends' houses.
What did you drive by there for?
I was actually headed to the mall. I just picked some friends up around the corner, and we seen her out in the yard and stopped and talked to her.
Who stopped to talk to her?
Me and my witness, Brittany.
Brittany is your new girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, tell me what you said to her.
She wanted the CDs back. She said that she wanted them back by 10 p.m. I told her that I had bought the CDs and that I wanted to get copies of them and she could have the bought copies and I would take the computer issue ones and that they would be returned to her.
Now, how long had she been asking you for these CDs?
2, 3 days.
And was there any reason why you had this discussion with her with your new girlfriend in the car?
No, I just bumped into her.
And you decided to stop and talk to her about the CDs with the new girlfriend in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
And this was 3 days after you broke up? You have a short attention span.
Me and Brittany weren't together then.
You're just friends then?
Yeah.
Okay, now when he told you you weren't getting the CDs back until after he makes copies of them, he took off, and what happened?
Ma'am, I'm sorry. That is not what happened. I was at Lone Oak Manor. It was not 2 miles from my house. I did move here recently. I was over at Lone Oak Manor staying with a friend. They drove through once, beeping their horn and flipping off the apartment that I was in. Then when they came back through, they actually left and came back again. And, good Lord.
So you went out?
I went outside the second time that they came through.
That was silly, Ms. Chinook. What'd you go outside for if he's behaving like a jerk?
Because, ma'am, My CDs were my life. That's the only thing that I owned
Your
at that point
CDs were
in
your
time.
life.
Yes, ma'am.
You better get a new life.
I know.
You better get another life. If your CDs are your life, your children are your life, your family is your life, sometimes a profession is your life. Some men say golf is their life. But I never heard anybody say, my CDs are my life. So you went out after you saw him the second time, and what happened?
I went outside. I told the plaintiff, Keenan, that I wanted my CDs back and that I knew that him and Brittany were together. She was supposed to be my friend at the time, Your Honor. According to several witnesses...
Don't say, I don't care what witnesses say. I don't care if they were together or not, other than the fact that he stopped to talk to you with the new girlfriend in the car, which is pretty stupid. But that's probably consistent. All right, so you went outside and you said, my CDs are my life. Give me my life back. And he said, you'll get them back after I dub them. Is that the right word?
That's the right word.
Right word. After I dub them, you'll get them back.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he peeled off?
No, ma'am.
Then you cursed him?
They started cursing. I started
What about cursing? Then you cursed him?
Yes.
There came a point when he took off in the truck, and you took off after him.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do when you took off after him?
I took off after him. I said, I want my CDs. I took off my sandals. I did throw them at him. I was upset.
Did they hit the car?
Yes. One of them actually flew inside the car window and hit a 16-month-old little boy in the head. I did not know he was in the back seat.
Who's 16-month-old little boy?
Megan.
What was the baby doing in the car?
They were going with us to the mall.
And then what happened?
He put the car into reverse. We got into a conflict again in the middle of the road.
What kind of conflict? You can't say you got into a conflict. So far,
we were
I'm
arguing.
hearing all kinds of stupidity.
We were arguing, yelling, screaming, cussing. About that time, he told me to kiss my ASS goodbye and my CDs.
And then?
I can't really remember anything after that. I was in the middle of the road. They put the car in drive. They took off. And the last thing I remember is taillights. That's the only thing I remember after that.
Where did you wake up?
In the hospital.
You have the hospital record?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I see them, please?
Just all of them.
All right, Mr. Starnes, you want to tell me your version of the events, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Me and the plaintiff dated for 34 months.
Listen to me. I don't care.
We split up.
I know that.
Okay.
Get to the 15th of July. That's all I care about. I don't care about, other than the fact that the new girlfriend is interesting because it shows your poor judgment in having a discussion with the old girlfriend after 3 days with the new girlfriend in the car. Sounds pretty dumb to me. Other than that, I'm really not interested in your social life, sir. I'm more concerned with my own social life. So let's move on to 7:15:03. She threw her slipper at the car.
We were there having our altercation in the parking lot.
She
threw her slipper at the car.
the slipper in the car.
I drove away.
And that's your story. And you're sticking to it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. You have a certificate of disposition on your criminal case?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it.
It's got to be one of these.
So the case was dismissed, sir, because she did not remember anything that happened. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. She refused to testify.
No, it doesn't say she refused to testify. It said, according to your lawyer, who files this affidavit with me, he said he went out to speak to her, and she said she didn't remember anything that evening and didn't remember being hit.
Yeah.
However, the police department did, in fact, interview a multitude of witnesses, according to the police report that I have here, and the multitude of witnesses, sir, say that you backed your car into her.
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you think that all those people were lying to the police?
They must have been.
I don't know, because there goes that car.
They
That
didn't
car
go
that
to
just
court,
popped
so.
out of the sky, along with all the other aliens. Huh?
They did not show up in court, so I don't know.
Well, maybe the police didn't take this case seriously enough. You know you could have killed her.
Yes, ma'am.
You're lucky. If you would have killed her, they wouldn't have let it drop so fast. You know that, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. There isn't a question in my mind, Mr. Starnes, that you hit the defendant with your car. And being that is the case, sir, you are not entitled to your counsel fees back, your aggravation back, or anything else. You hit her with your car and you left her laying in the road. So your claim is dismissed. But on her counterclaim, I am awarding her $1,500 for her medical bills. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Really, this is over somebody not getting their way, and they wanted to show out.
I had no right taking my sandals off and throwing them at his car.
That's 2 court appearances I feel like I've been ripped off on, but...
Brittany Robbins pretended to be my friend the whole time, and the whole time she was out to get my old man.
I wasn't out to get her boyfriend. We ended up together, and that's the way it was.
Both of us have anger problems, and that's probably had something to do with it.
She just couldn't keep her mouth shut, and that's the way it goes.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Collins versus Batting. Step forward, please.
Nurse Tammy Collins is suing fellow motorist, 25-year-old technician Chris Batting, for throwing a bottle at her car. Tammy says Chris was annoyed at the rate of speed she was driving.
Miss Collins, on what date did this incident happen with your car?
This incident happened on May 15th of 2004.
And on what road were you traveling?
I was traveling northbound on Highway 67 on my way to work.
Highway 67 is in what state?
It is in the state of Missouri.
According to what I read in your complaint, you got into some sort of a situation with a truck.
Yes, ma'am.
And you weren't moving fast enough. You were in the left lane. Try to get over to the right lane. You couldn't. Anyway, this truck became exasperated with the way you were driving, culminating in the fact that the person who was driving in that truck threw a bottle, a beer bottle,
yes,
or some sort of bottle, out the window of the truck. It hit your car, causing damage.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that Mr. Batting was the person who tossed the bottle out of the car, causing the damage to your car. Mr. Batting was stopped some distance away from where this incident happened as a result of you placing a call to the police.
Yes, ma'am.
What did the truck look like?
It was a white and gray Ford F-150.
White and gray.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it new or old?
It was in a 90s model. The distinguishing factor of that truck was that there was a large dog in the back end of it.
Do you remember what the dog looked like?
It was a Rottweiler.
Now, it is your position, Mr. Batting, that you had nothing to do with this incident?
Absolutely not.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What are you doing driving around in your truck with a dog in the back bed of the car? Oh, it's not an answer.
She likes to ride in the back of the truck.
When did she tell you that?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tammy Collins says fellow motorist Chris Batting threw a bottle at her car while they were driving on the freeway. Chris says she's got the wrong guy.
How long, Mr. Batting, have you lived in the state of Missouri?
All my life.
Now, what county do you live in?
St. Louis County.
What county do you live in?
St. Francis County.
Where were you, in St. Louis or St. Francis County when this incident happened?
We were actually in Jefferson County, which is the county in between the two.
And where was your truck pulled over, sir? Jefferson's?
Jefferson County on Highway 55.
Okay. Let's say that between those 3 counties, there are, say, 1 million people. Mm-hmm. That be a fair statement?
That's fair.
We're going to, Mr. Batting, play with the statistics and the law of averages a little bit. Of those 1 million people, how many would you say, Mr. Batting, and you could give me an educated guess, sir. And if you get my drift of where I'm going, just smile along any time, sir. How many people do you think who live, 1 million people, have white and gray Ford trucks?
A few hundred, maybe. I don't know.
Few hundred. Let's say 300.
300.
And how many people do you think, of those 300, Mr. Batting, in addition to having a Ford truck, have a Rottweiler?
Maybe half.
That's generous, Mr.
Okay.
Batting. That's
It could be
generous.
all of them. I haven't
That's
checked.
generous. But let me take your figure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say of the 300 people that have a Ford F-150 truck, 150 of them also have a Rottweiler. Now, of the 150 who also have a Rottweiler, how many of them do you think at about 3:15 in the afternoon were riding in their Ford F-150 trucks with their Rottweilers?
How many?
Give me a number.
I didn't see any.
5
others.
people.
5, yeah. Probably 5.
Maybe 5 people. Now, of those 5 people riding in their Ford F-150 trucks somewhere in the state of Missouri, in those 3 counties, how many of them do you think were around the area where this bottle got thrown at the plaintiff? Would you say maybe 2?
Maybe 2.
So that what you're saying to me is, since you were driving in a white and gray Ford truck, right?
Yes.
With your Rottweiler in the back of the truck.
Yes.
When you were stopped by the
Police.
that there was a 50-50 chance, given your best scenario, that it was somebody else who threw the bottle at her car. That's what you're saying to me?
I don't believe there was a bottle thrown at her car, so I don't know.
Well, just a minute, Mr. Batting. Your answer doesn't question that there wasn't a bottle thrown in her car. You say, I never saw this lady. I wasn't there. I don't know what she's talking about. You don't say we got into a thing with our cars, but I never threw a bottle. You're saying it wasn't me.
Right.
Wrong. Can I see the estimate of the damage to your car?
Yes, ma'am. There's photos here. There's a copy of the police report, which you already have, and also an estimate from a very reputable auto repair facility.
What are you doing driving around in your truck with a dog in the back bed of the car? It's not an answer.
She likes to ride in the back of the truck.
When did she tell you that?
Very often.
I want to know when she told you that. She tells you that often.
Not with words, no.
All right, Miss Collins. I see where there were little chips on the car. I see your estimate. I think you can get the car painted for $1,000, and that's what I'm awarding you, not $3,500. Mr. Batting, got to hold your temper, sir. Got to hold your temper. Somebody isn't driving fast enough for you. Take a deep breath. Life is short. Do you understand? That's
Yes.
all. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She left, and you claim took some of your property.
Yes.
Accused of robbing her roommate.
She took a TV, a surround sound system, all of my jewelry.
No, I did not.
When it just happens to disappear the day that you move out.
But who's robbing who?
This is all stolen
Yes.
property.
Judge Judy.
You paid for it in cash?
Correct.
Baloney. Show me, where on your bill of sale does it show what you
I don't
paid?
have the purchase receipt.
Did you think I was born yesterday with a defendant?
Yes.
Who you knew, to share an apartment together?
Yes.
It didn't work out. She left, and you claim took some of your property when she moved out. You
Yes.
want her to either turn over the property or the value of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Gonzalez says that you forced her out of the apartment in mid-September. She had, in fact, paid you September's rent, and she is counterclaiming for the rent that she paid, as well as harassment. She said that you forced her out. How did you know each other before you went to this apartment together?
Andre and Delilah used to work at Sears together.
Why did you ask her to leave the apartment?
She was selling and she was dealing drugs. She was doing drugs in the house. There was drugs
What
kept
kind
in
of
the
drugs?
house. Marijuana.
When did you move in together?
We first moved in March into her apartment. Her boyfriend broke up with her after 6 years, and we felt sorry for her. She was saying that she was going to have to move. And
You moved in
all
with
that
her in
stuff.
March.
Yes,
When did you sign a lease for the new apartment?
in May.
From March until May, you never saw any evidence that she was selling drugs?
I knew that she smoked weed, but every time that she did it, I was always in the room or I was never there.
But you knew that she smoked.
Yes, I did.
So why would you rent an apartment with her?
Our name wasn't on the lease, and we felt sorry for her. I
Okay.
mean, she was a friend at the time, and she needed help. We were helping her out.
Baloney.
That's what you think, but...
Yes, baloney. Because if you know somebody is doing drugs, then you don't, when you're living with them, then it seems to me, if you're not involved, stop speaking, then it seems to me if you're not involved in the same kind of activity, then you don't go into an apartment leased together. That doesn't sound very smart, right? And don't tell me you were doing it because you felt sorry for her.
No, in May, actually, before we moved into the new place and before we signed the new lease, we talked and said that we did not want drugs in the house. We didn't want her doing any drugs. We didn't want anything in the house, and she agreed to do that. The first night that we were in the house, she went and she sold weed out in front of our house, and we weren't even in the house for 20 minutes, and she was already smoking weed. I told her that she needed to stop doing that, that we agreed to not be doing any drugs in the house.
What property do you say she took out of the house when you told her to leave?
She took a TV, a surround sound system, all of my jewelry. She took a car jack stands, power tools, DVDs.
Did you call her and say, where's my stuff?
Yes, I did.
You have a
and
police
she told
report?
us that we did not deserve to have it back and hung up on me.
Is that what she said to you?
Yes.
Could you have a police report, please?
Yes, I do.
May I have it? So you called her on what date?
We called her the day that it happened when we got
What
home,
date?
on the 14th of September.
And you got her on the phone. Where did you call her?
On her cell phone.
And she said you don't deserve to have it back.
I also have pictures of what we came home to.
I'd like to see the pictures, please.
She also took panties of mine. She took our pillowcases off of our bedroom, off of our bed set.
Shh. Okay. I'll hear you.
The first day I was there, I sensed attitude, and I asked, what's wrong? Is there something bothering you? They told me, no, nothing's wrong. 2 weeks later, it came out telling me that they don't want me there. I go, well, it's a little too late.
Why do you think that happened?
I don't know.
Did you ever have a discussion with them about drugs?
I work for a pharmacy, and
that's all right.
It's illegal, you know, I work in a retail pharmacy, so I guess legally you would say I'm a drug dealer if I work at a pharmacy.
No, I'm not talking about dealing. I'm talking about using.
No, I don't use. Yeah. No, I don't use. And I get drug tested to go to work, so naturally I wouldn't have a job if I was using drugs.
How often are you drug tested?
Randomly. If they feel that there's drugs missing in the pharmacy, they can randomly drug test me.
Okay, so what happened September 14th?
Well, previous to that, Sunday, I believe it was the 12th, she came up with a crowbar threatening me to move out of the house.
Why?
What?
Why? What did she say to you?
She told me, you're smoking weed in my house, when I was outside. I was outside sitting on a seat, minding my own business.
And what did you say to her?
I said, no, I'm not, and I'm not going to sit here and yell and waste time and energy because I'm not going to get anywhere. You guys have been trying to get me out of here for the longest time, but knowing that I have nowhere else to go, I mind my own business, I pay rent and bills on time.
Okay. Did you take any property there that didn't belong to you?
No, I did not. I took my own property.
Oh, and it just happens to disappear the day that you move out?
Listen to me. You have receipts for any of your jewelry?
No, it was given to me from my grandmother, and she died. So that was the only thing that I had.
You
from
have
her.
a receipt for the television set?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
The television and the surround sound system.
Bird, could you look here and just show me, I know I'm missing it someplace, how much these things cost?
The stuff is right here.
That is just a proof of purchase that was on our account that we have at Sears.
Which is stolen property from Sears.
How is it stolen property? We have warranty for it.
How is it stolen property from Sears?
Because they all used to work there, and they would steal property from there. And I was there while I was at work. I never said anything. I was just doing my job by working.
So what you're telling me is this is all stolen property, okay? The surround sound, listen to me carefully, the surround sound and the TV, stolen property.
Yes, including all the tools in the garage.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Listen to me very carefully, sir. Did you think I was born yesterday?
No, I didn't.
I have purchased merchandise for more years than you and your girlfriend have been on this earth.
And later today...
He's too young for you.
Yeah.
Even when they're 34, they don't know much.
I agree.
But when they're 24, they know less.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Serena Ratcliffe and her boyfriend, Andre Coates, claim former roommate Delilah Gonzalez owes for the return of their belongings. Delilah claims the items in question were stolen from a department store.
You paid for it in cash?
Correct.
Baloney.
I pay cash.
Let me tell you something. When you buy something and you pay cash, it tells what you paid for it. Show me where on your bill of sale does it show what you paid for this television and surround sound.
I don't have the purchase receipt. Those are receipts that are put into your file.
Listen to me very carefully, sir. Did you think I was born yesterday?
No, I didn't.
I have purchased merchandise for more years than you and your girlfriend have been on this earth. And whenever you purchase something, they give you a receipt that says the date of purchase, what you purchased, how much it cost, what the tax was, how you paid for it, and a total.
The only thing that aren't on those...
Quiet! Has that been your experience?
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have that, sir, you have no case. Do you understand?
No.
No. Well, everybody else that's paying attention gets it. Every time you make a purchase, whether you are an employee, whether you are Spider-Man, whether you are a judge, a peace officer, when you purchase something, you get a receipt that, among other things, lists how much you paid for it.
That is a receipt. The other papers that I gave you are a receipt.
Not satisfactory to me. So I have to assume that since you do not have a receipt of what you paid for, the television, the surround sound, that Miss Gonzalez is absolutely correct, that you stole this merchandise from Sears.
Then how can we get that?
Oh, I have no idea. Listen, this is not I've got a secret and 20 questions.
No,
you have a responsibility to produce evidence. Evidence.
That is
and as
evidence.
Well, not satisfactory to me, sir. So your complaint is dismissed. That's all. Now you have a counterclaim. Your counterclaim is for your security deposit.
Yes.
How much was your security deposit?
$666.
She was not able to pay any of that. We ended up having to pay her part.
No.
Okay.
And for our landlord was going to give her a 30-day notice because of everything that was going on.
Do you see my mouth moving?
Yes, I do.
Good. Do you have proof that you gave them a security deposit?
No, I do not.
Good.
I just have...
Proof I like.
Okay.
Do you have proof that you paid them September's rent?
No, I do not.
Did you pay them September's rent?
Yes, I did.
And how much was your share of September's rent that you gave them?
$330.
Is that what she gave you for September?
Give us any rent.
Did she give you rent for August?
Yes, but she had already been, August was done.
When?
In
The end of...
July.
And did she give you July's rent?
Yes.
When?
The
end of June.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is for the 2 months that she lived there, she paid you rent in a timely fashion, but in the month that you threw her out, she didn't pay rent at all in September. Is that what you're telling
Because
me?
we've been having problems. And no, she was not thrown out.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that she paid you the rent.
30-day notice.
I believe that she paid you the rent. You gave them $330?
Yes, I always pay before the 1st.
Well, that's what they said. That's what they just testified to. On the counterclaim, since I find that you were, in fact, forced out of the apartment, there may have been good cause because I believe that you were probably smoking dope there, but I don't know. This thing sounds very unseemly to me. But they can't put you out of the apartment, and I believe that they did. They even acknowledged that they told you to get out of the apartment. So on the counterclaim,
How would you
what are
like
you,
it if somebody was doing drugs in
$330?
your
Your
house
claim is
around you?
dismissed. That's all. Step out.
Whatever.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was either quit doing drugs and you could stay in the house or move out.
I wasn't allowed to eat their food. I wasn't allowed to park in the driveway. I wasn't allowed to have company over.
We don't want to be around it. We don't need it. We don't need cops coming to our house because she's selling drugs in front of our house.
I thought they were my friends. I did a lot for them, and for them to do this to me and drag it on was really hurtful to me.
We worked hard for our stuff, and a stupid little like that can come in and just take our stuff and not get in trouble for it.
How are they going to sue somebody for stolen items to begin with?
Don't move in with her. She's a drug dealer, and she'll ruin your life.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Clark versus Muir. Step forward, please.
34-year-old loan officer Diana Clark is suing her ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old landscaper Brian Muir, for an unpaid loan for bail. Brian says it wasn't a loan, but rather a very nice gesture.
How old are you, Miss Clark?
34.
Do you work?
Yes, I do.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a loan officer.
Ever been married?
Yes.
Have any kids?
Yes.
How many?
2.
Do they live with you?
Yes, they do.
You their sole support?
Yes.
You're a nice-looking woman.
Thank you.
Got nice dimples. How old are you?
24.
He's too young for you.
Yeah.
Even when they're 34, they don't know much.
I agree.
But when they're 24, they know less. What do you do for a living?
I'm a landscaper.
Who do you live with?
My daughters,
How old are your daughters?
5 and 6,
Where is their mother?
not around.
For how long?
About a year now.
Who helps you care for your children while you're landscaping?
Their grandmother.
Okay. Miss Clark, according to you, you loaned Mr. Meir $500 for bail because they were going to come and arrest him unless he sort of liquidated some warrants that he had for something that I'm going to find out.
Correct.
And you were dating at the time.
Yes.
He paid you back a little bit,
A little bit.
but he didn't pay you back the whole thing, and then he stopped taking your calls. Mr. Meir says that it was a nice gesture on your part, but not a loan. That's your defense. Is that
Correct,
right?
ma'am.
Why did you need bail, sir?
Well, I had got into some trouble. I had got into a fight in my neighborhood. And the result of it, they put a warrant out for my arrest, a third-degree assault and breach of peace. And
Why did they put a warrant out? Did you not go to court when you were supposed to?
not right away, ma'am.
No. Did you expect an engraved invitation this next time?
No.
Did you expect someone to come in your house in a tuxedo, perhaps, and bring you over to jail? You just decided to blow it off.
No, I was waiting until I was financially stable to take care of.
You were waiting until you felt like it.
No, I was waiting until I was financially stable.
Financially stable. And when did you think that was going to be, Mr. Meir?
Well, I had just started a new job, so I had planned on doing it as soon as possible.
How did Miss Clark find out there was a warrant outstanding for you?
It was brought up in a conversation that we were having at a friend's house.
And when you told her about the warrant, Mr. Meir, what did you say?
I just said, I have a warrant, and I have to turn myself in.
And she said?
And she said, anytime you want to turn yourself in, I'll be glad to help you out.
How much later did you call and tell her you needed her help?
It wasn't but a few days.
So a few days later you called her or you went to see her and told her, well, I'm ready to turn myself in, I need your help?
Well, I was over a friend's house, and when she came over there, I told her that I was going to turn myself in, and that's when she offered to bail me out, Your Honor.
How did you know that he needed bail money when he turned himself in?
He called me from the bail bondsman's phone.
Really?
Yes.
You forgot about that.
Actually, Your Honor, I did not call her from the bail bondsman's phone. The bail bondsman lives next door to my friend. And I had talked to him beforehand, and I had let him know that if I needed to be bonded out, that I was going to use him.
Go ahead, Miss Clark.
No, he called me from the bail bondsman's phone and said that he was at his home and he was going to be turning himself in. Could I go ahead and bail him out like I had told him I would do?
When did he make his first payments to you?
April 16th.
And when did you bail him out?
April 13th.
And how much did he give you on April 16th?
$50.
When did he make his next payment to you?
April 23rd.
How much?
$40. There was, just so you know, there wasn't a previous amount that I had loaned him also. So that part of what I have written down here was applied to what he owed me previous to that as well.
What did you lend him money for in the past?
He wanted to go back to his hometown to see his friends for his birthday.
Your Honor, if I may, the money that I did pay her back, she had brought me home to see my friends and family. The money that I did pay her back was the money that she loaned me. She never said I had to pay her back for this bail, Your Honor. I paid her back $130. That's what she loaned me when I went to Boston.
$130?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did he pay you altogether?
$230.
So you gave her $100 in interest?
No, I only gave her $130.
She says you gave her $230.
I only gave her $130, Your Honor.
Are you sure about
I'm
that?
positive about that.
So that if I find that this was a loan, you owe her $500, not the $370 that she says. Is that right?
That would be correct.
Good. Mr. Meir, did Miss Clark assault anybody?
No, she harassed.
Just a second.
No,
Did she
ma'am.
assault anybody?
No, ma'am.
Did Miss Clark have a warrant issued for her arrest because she blew off letters from the police?
No, ma'am.
Who did? Raise your hand.
I did.
Raise your hand.
Me.
Higher. Raise your hand all the way
I
up.
did.
Right. What makes you think that she should take care of your bail? She's a working woman. She's got 2 children that she supports. Why in the world would she pay for you and you feel no drive to pay her back as quickly as possible.
She has spent abundance of money on me. Abundance. She took me out for my birthday and spent well over $1,000. If that was the case...
Foolish.
If that was the case,
foolish, because I want to tell you
her money
something.
back.
She must see something in you that I don't.
It's the good looks, Your Honor.
Have you looked in the mirror lately?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Mir, you have two children, two little children, that you say are in your custody because their mother is off somewhere. That means that the only chance your children have of growing up to be responsible adults is if they have you as a responsible parent.
Correct.
You were foolish enough to hook up with somebody who turned out to be a non-parent and dumb enough at your age to make two babies. Now it's your responsibility to grow up and fly right. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $370, because that's all you're suing for. That's all. Out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you.
Court manager Ramona Clark is suing daycare provider Jennifer Morgan for damage to her home and an assault. Jennifer claims Ramona's husband sexually assaulted her 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah, this is case number 300 on the calendar on the matter of Clark versus Morgan. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Ms. Clark, it is your claim that the defendant came to your home. She came with other relatives of hers. She damaged your home and assaulted you. And this was all over an incident that involved your husband, who I see is not present today. Ms. Morgan says she was very angry with your husband because he had sexually abused a cousin of hers. And she did, in fact, come to the house, but she neither damaged the house nor did she assault you. How do you know each other?
My husband and her boyfriend are childhood friends.
When did this sexual assault allegedly take place, Miss Morgan?
In July of 2003.
Where did it allegedly take place?
At my house.
And what was Miss Clark's husband doing at your house?
He was originally at the bar with my ex. She came into the bar, took his keys from him because he was there. He called my house, didn't have anywhere to go, so my ex went and picked him up and let him come spend the night at our house because they were fighting.
And how old is this cousin of yours who was...
13.
Now, I gather that that case has been resolved. Is that right?
He's in jail for it now.
And he pled guilty to assault.
Sexual assault.
Sexual assault? Mm-hmm. How long is your husband incarcerated?
He's incarcerated for another year.
How long has he been incarcerated?
A year. I don't know how that...
Do you have a different...
Yes.
Go ahead.
He took the plea bargain. They gave him, I forget how many years it was, but he has to stay in jail for 10 years because part of his plea bargain was to waive his right to all appeals and modifications.
And this happened July what?
I believe it was around the 26th.
So on the 26th, you were advised by your 13-year-old cousin that this assault had taken place?
Yes.
Who went over to the plaintiff's house?
Me, my sister, her husband, and my ex.
Why did you go over there?
Because we were mad.
That the way you respond?
No, we didn't go over there to do anything to her. In fact, when we arrived to the house, I am the one who knocked on the door, and I asked for her because I felt sorry for her. I really did. I mean, how can you tell somebody your husband just raped my 13-year-old cousin? She came to the door, then he came to the door. When he came to the door, he stepped outside. He was a nervous wreck. He was like this. He knew what we were there for. As soon as he steps outside, my sister's husband went after him. They fought on the sidewalk. She comes outside.
Just a second. That is a mistake. You understand that. That was the wrong thing to happen.
Right, I know that, but I didn't do it. I didn't.
Miss Morgan, listen to me. What did you go there for?
To confront him for my 13-year-old cousin.
All right, Miss Clark, let me hear you. What happened when she arrived there?
When her and her family members arrived, they were beating down the door. My daughter here and my husband were on their way down the steps to find out what the heck was going on, because it was throughout the neighborhood you could hear them screaming obscenities and everything. Just as Brandy went to open the door, it came open. I mean, they just piled in. In the process of Dion being behind Brandy, she got hurt the worst. They were dragging him out of the house and throwing him everywhere, beating and punching him. And when I came out the house, Jennifer came at me with a broken, rusty rake, and she went and shoved it in my stomach, and I fell against steps, and Brandy went after her, and another girl went after her. And
you are amazing.
It was
you are
no way.
Miss Morgan, Say nothing until it's your turn. Do you understand? Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We were just outnumbered. We just had to just go in the house. My other daughter called the police because it was horrible. It was like a rumble, tumble, everything. And they were.
You have any photographs of your house?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Tell me about your injuries.
Well, I didn't really have too many injuries because I just fell into the steps, but my husband was really beat up.
Well, I'm not here to discuss your husband. And while I absolutely abhor what happened that day, and I'm not talking about the night before, I'm talking about that day and Miss Morgan and her family and friends coming to your house, which I think is wholly inappropriate. Uncross your hands. Your husband's injuries are your husband's injuries. My question to you, Miss Clark, is, it is clear to me that Miss Morgan was not alone. This young lady was with her, according to her, as well as 2 other men. Why didn't you sue them?
I didn't even know who they were, and that lady right there wasn't present.
I wasn't present?
No, she wasn't present.
Okay.
Step up. You were there?
Yeah.
Good. What's your name?
Sarah Weiser.
When you grow up, your top is going to fit your pants so that it all comes together. When you come to court, we don't do that. You're supposed to come to court looking like you're coming to court. You were there that day?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh is not an answer.
Yes.
That's better. What did you go there for?
To confront her husband.
Why? That's what the police are for.
Because he raped our 13-year-old cousin.
That's what the police are for.
And we called the police.
Before you went over or after? Oh, it's not an answer.
Same time.
What do you mean the same time? What does that mean, the same time?
We called her mother called the police while we were in pursuit to her house.
What do you do for a living? I'm speaking. What do you do for a living?
I do daycare.
You do what?
Daycare.
For children?
Yes. I have 4 children.
How old are you?
28.
28, 4 children. Do your 4 children all have the same father?
No.
How many different fathers do your 4 children have?
2.
Do any of them live with you?
Any of my children's fathers?
Yes.
Yes.
Which ones?
The one that came to her house.
I thought you said he was your ex.
He is my ex, but we still live together.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You had no right to terrorize her, and you had no right to terrorize her daughter.
They were not touched.
I said terrorize, you idiot!
And later today,
the dog was not outside. Immediately I said to my son, we need to go to the dog shelter. A woman walked out and she said, I am so sorry to tell you this, but at the same time that you walked in, we were euthanizing your animal.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ramona Clark says family acquaintance Jennifer Morgan owes for damage to her home and for an assault. Jennifer says Ramona's husband sexually assaulted her 13-year-old cousin.
Let me explain something to you, Miss Morgan. You had absolutely no right, either with or without Miss Bear Midriff over here, to go to her house that day with either alone or with anybody else. You had no right to terrorize her, and you had no right to terrorize her daughter.
They were not touched. They were not touched.
I said terrorize, you idiot!
This originally started as a criminal case. She filed charges against me. The state dropped them.
Let me tell you something, madam. The state where you reside may decide that whatever actions you did that day were motivated by female testosterone that was running in your blood and by the testosterone of the two idiot males that you were with. But in this country, we don't do what you did. Because according to what you told me when you started, this lady came to a bar where her husband was. He was drunk. She took the car keys away so that he wouldn't drive, so that he couldn't hurt himself or hurt somebody else. So she doesn't sound like she is a lunatic. It sounds like she was trying to do the responsible thing. Your ex, genius that he is, said, come and sleep in my house. So he brought him back to the house, and somebody wasn't minding the store at your house. Because if you have a drunk man staying in your house, it seems to me you watch him very, very carefully. You certainly don't respond to that kind of action, the kind of action that he committed, by going to his house and terrorizing his family. Idiot. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,500. That's all. Out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It's a shame that the vicious nature of some people can destroy the lives of others.
I hope it gave her a reason to really want to stick by her husband, who's in jail for 10 years.
There was no DNA evidence.
It was one in 500 quintillion that it was him.
It's crazy. All kind of stuff going through my head, wondering if the accusations are true.
It was up to us to bust it for what he did, and that's what we did.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Allen versus Caldwell. Step forward, please.
Nurse Karen Allen is suing her former pet sitter, 21-year-old ER clerk Tiffany Caldwell, for rent and for the cost of a Welsh Corgi. Karen says while she was away, her dog was euthanized.
Miss Allen, according to your complaint, you hired Miss Caldwell to house and dog sit for you. You were going to be gone for several months, and you had to leave your dog at home. The arrangement was that she would stay in your house for how many months?
It was going to be from March of 2004 until August of 2004.
Unfortunately, when you came home in August, you found that your dog had been euthanized.
Yes, ma'am.
And your house trashed.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want Miss Caldwell to now pay you for rent and for your dog.
Yes,
I don't know how you set a price on that. What kind of dog did you have?
I had an AKC registered Pembroke Welsh Corgi.
How long had you had the dog?
Approximately about a year and a half.
Boy or a girl?
A male.
Where is your home?
In Knoxville, Tennessee.
And where were you going for 5 months?
I was going to work as a travel nurse in Newark, New Jersey.
Is this your son?
Yes, ma'am.
He was going with you?
No, he stayed with his father during the 5 months.
And where does his father live?
In Morristown, Tennessee, about 40 miles away from Knoxville.
How did you find Miss Caldwell?
A common friend of ours that we both share suggested her, said that she was looking for something, and she worked for the same hospital system I worked at in Knoxville, and it's a very choosy hospital system, so I felt that, you know, they've checked her out, and they've checked me out, so we should probably be a pretty good fit. We met and talked, and she agreed to watch my dog and live in the house while I was gone.
Is that correct so far, Miss Caldwell?
Yes, ma'am.
So she moved into the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you check on the house and the defendant during the 5 months that she was there?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I was home 2 or 3 times to take Matthew to hockey events. I would fly in for the weekend, stop by the house, check on the dog. Everything seemed fine. And I would call her frequently. So it was phone tag sometimes, but I would always get a message back, everything was fine. In July, I did call to check on my dog, and she told me that mosquitoes were bad in the area and that he had a few mosquito bites, but he was fine.
You remember that conversation in July?
Actually, it was flies, and she said that it had happened yearly, that his ears would get irritated from where the flies would bother him when he would stay outside.
Why was he staying outside?
The agreement between her and I was, since I worked at the time 10-hour shifts, and she had worked 12 when she lived there, that the dog would, of course, stay outside because couldn't leave him inside that long. And there was a lead that he was attached to. He had a house, he had food, he had water. When I was home, he was in the house with me. When I was at work, he was out in the yard.
When would you leave for work?
It differed. Sometimes I'd work morning shift, sometimes I'd work graveyard shift, evening shift.
You mean when you worked the night shift, you would leave the dog outside all night?
Yeah, that's when he would stay outside nightly.
Was that your agreement with her?
He was not supposed to be outside all night. He was crate trained. He had a nice large roomy crate in the house, and a lot of times, even when I was at work, if I felt the weather was not acceptable and it wouldn't be good for him to be outside, he wouldn't go outside.
Were you sleeping at the house every night?
For the first month or so that I had moved in, I did, and then I got a phone call from Karen telling me that the landlord had told her that he wasn't happy with the fact that someone else was staying there, because I had occasionally had a friend that I worked with stay with me, and he apparently wasn't happy about any of the situation.
Well, he wasn't unhappy with you staying in the house, just with the friend.
Well, the conversation was it was a general, he wasn't happy about any of the situation. He didn't like it. He apparently wasn't happy with Karen being away and somebody else being in the house at all.
Miss Caldwell.
Karen Allen says her former pet sitter, Tiffany Caldwell, owes for trashing her house and causing her Welsh Corgi to be euthanized.
The boy that you had staying at the house, was this your boyfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
I made it very specific that I didn't want any strangers in my house, Your Honor.
Right. Don't give me baloney. Did the landlord complain to you that there was this guy in the house?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
And did you tell her that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
So you told her not to have the guy in the house?
Correct.
Right. That's different than you not staying in the house. That just says tell your boyfriend not to stay there. There's a difference, Miss Caldwell. So if she told you the boyfriend couldn't stay there, you decided to stay at his place? Is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you did?
Sometimes.
Okay. So when you stayed there sometimes, that means that you went to work And when you say you went to work, you left the dog outside. And then when you went to your boyfriend's house, where did you leave the dog?
The dog would stay out.
So that the dog would be out sometimes for 24 hours at a time?
Sometimes, yes, ma'am.
That's irresponsible, Miss Caldwell. Very irresponsible. When you make an arrangement with somebody and you find yourself a boyfriend, then you call her up and you say, listen, I can't keep that part of the bargain because I now have a boyfriend. And it's very important that I sleep with him. Because if I don't sleep with him, I'll die. So you're going to have to find somebody else to take care of the dog. You don't just disregard your responsibility and allow the dog to stay outside for 24 hours at a time. We understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
You think I'm right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think you did the wrong thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, because that's not what your answer says. I read your answer and you said she told me I couldn't stay there. I said, gee, that doesn't make sense. Here's the woman who hires you to stay in her house. Why would she tell you you couldn't stay there? She didn't tell you you couldn't stay there. She said your boyfriend couldn't stay there. When you got home in August, what did you find, Miss Allen?
We arrived home on August the 13th, Matthew and I. We drove into our driveway, and the dog was not outside. It was a very hot day, and so I thought, well, maybe she had placed the dog inside. But somehow I had this sinking feeling that moms have in their stomach. We got into the house, called for the dog. There was no dog. There was a horrible stench in the house where garbage had been piled up, dirty dishes with water that had like 1/4 of an inch of mold on the top layer of the water. Immediately I said to my son Matthew, I said, we need to go to the dog shelter. We got in the car and went to the shelter, which is 1 mile from my home, and walked in and asked if anybody had turned in a Welsh Corgi. A young man had said, we received a Corgi. What kind is it? I told him it was a Pembroke. He asked me if it was tricolored. I told him yes. He says, I think we have your dog. And of course, I was ecstatic. We get back into the back. They couldn't find the dog. They asked me to wait in reception. About 10 or 15 minutes later, a woman walked out who was the manager. She was visibly upset. And she said, I am so sorry to tell you this, but at the same time that you walked in, we were euthanizing your animal, we believe. They asked if we wanted to see the body and identify it, and I said yes. I had to know. Matthew preceded me down the hall and went into her office where they had laid the dog. And he started crying, and right away we knew that it was the dog. And my last vision of this animal is him curled up on the floor with his dog.
How did the dog get to the shelter?
I'm not exactly sure. I know on the evening of the 7th, the morning of the 8th, I was working. I got off at around 1:45, 2 a.m. I had went to the house to feed the dog, and of course, I was going to stay there that night. And I pulled into the driveway, but the dog didn't run up to the car. So I looked around and couldn't find him.
So you don't know what happened to the dog. The dog got out somehow.
Right.
And what about the mess that was left in the house?
There was
not an answer.
There was dirty dishes in the house.
Why?
I left because I was upset. The dog wasn't there. I couldn't find him. I couldn't get.
You left the dishes earlier. You left the dishes early. You didn't leave the dishes then. You left the mess in the house before. Why?
There's no excuse.
Where are you living now?
I'm living in an apartment.
And how much rent do you pay?
$360 a month.
$360
Yes,
times
ma'am.
5. That's $1,800. You had a bartering agreement with her. Your agreement with her was that in exchange for watching the dog and taking care of the house, you could live in her home rent-free. You didn't live up to your end of the agreement. So you have to pay a rent. Right? Sounds right to me. That's $1,800. Now, you can't put a price on your dog, but there has to be some statement to this young lady that she can't take that kind of responsibility and just cast it out the window because she finds herself a boyfriend. Right? I will put a price on it for the purposes of this litigation. The price that I'm putting on it is $2,000. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $3,800. $1,800 for rent and $2,000 because she didn't take care of her responsibility. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Versus Carter Bruce. Step forward, please.
50-year-old contractor Larry Blaylock says Billy Ray Carter's dog killed his ostrich.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 190 on the calendar in the matter of Blaylock versus Carter Bruce. Parties have been sworn in except for the dog. You may be seated.
Dogs always tell the truth.
Yes.
Mr. Blaylock, Mr. Bruce is your neighbor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bruce. Mr. Carter moved into Mr. Bruce's home along with this dog.
Into his tack room. Combination tack room.
On his property.
On his property.
With this dog.
Yes.
Problem arose, Mr. Blaylock, because according to your complaint, you raise on your property ostriches.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many ostriches did you have at the time of this incident, sir?
38.
Why?
Profit. Raised for meat and skin.
Where do you live?
Norco, a suburb of Riverside.
In California?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you permitted to have 38 ostriches on your property?
To my reluctance, I found out that I have got to get rid of 9 birds.
Did you find that out before or after?
After.
This incident?
After.
According to these papers, sir, you claim that this dog here killed one of your ostriches.
Yes, ma'am.
So you want to tell me about it?
Well, I started raising the birds about 2 years ago with the approval of my neighbors. I checked with them before I started. And
well, let's go back a second. You say you checked with your neighbors. Not really according to your papers, sir. You say you asked your neighbors if they minded you having a few ostriches on your property.
Yes.
Did you ever tell them how many you were going to have on your property?
No, ma'am.
How large a piece of property do you have?
2.5 acres.
And how big are these birds, sir?
Well, the tallest about 6 feet, 7 feet.
And according to your papers, they weigh about 300 pounds.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, 2 acres isn't a lot of property, sir, to have that, you know, it's like having a zoo on your property.
Well, each pair of birds has their own pen of 50 by 100 feet.
Is this a residential area?
You'd have to know the premise that Norco is founded on. It's an animal lover's paradise, actually. It's for horses and...
Residential?
It is basically residential, with the thought of animals in mind.
But clearly not according to your ordinances, 38 ostrich.
I had too many ostriches at the time.
Okay. Now tell me how this incident happened with, according to you, this dog.
Well, the defendant, Billy Carter, woke me up about 6:30 one morning, said that one of my birds couldn't get up. I asked him how he knew that the bird couldn't get up, because his first statement was, you know, it had nothing to do with me or my dog. I said, well, if it had nothing to do with you or your dog, how did you know it can't get up? You know, and so I walked out.
How did you know that, sir?
I knew this was something wrong because I'm used to with horses and stuff. When they lie down and don't get up, there's something wrong. I'm not an ostrich.
So you knocked at the door and you said your ostrich can't get up. Did you go outside and look at the bird, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened to, what was the condition of the bird?
The bird was well, we call impacted or constipated.
What?
Impacted or constipated.
Constipated?
Yes. So I gave him a dose of mineral oil and came back and checked on him again.
I hate to ask you this question, Mr. Blaylock, but, you know, I'm a judge and I have to get all the facts. Mm-hmm. How can you tell an ostrich is constipated?
Just the same way you tell a child. It's just they're listless and don't want to join the crowd. Don't want to join the others.
There aren't any other reasons why a bird wouldn't want to eat or was listless other than being constipated?
No, ma'am. It's just a common problem.
Okay. So it is a common problem with ostriches because of what they eat or what?
Because they can't pick up the wrong thing. I found neighborhood kids are throwing marbles and golf balls and whatever in the yard.
So they eat things
that
they shouldn't?
They'll eat anything they can fit in their mouth.
So they're real stupid.
They're about the stupidest animal you'll ever find.
It's honest. Okay, so you gave this bird a dose of, I don't know, castor oil for ostriches or mineral oil and went on your way.
Yes.
What happened after bird got a dose?
I came out about 10 o'clock to check on him and gave her another dose, and I had to hold her down to give her the second dose. So this bird was improving and feeling better.
Okay.
In good shape.
Okay.
Moving around.
Next.
Then I came back out about 1:30, as I usually do, to check on all the birds, and the bird was dead.
Describe, because that becomes very important, describe where the bird was.
Well, I have photographs where I found it, with the bird's head under the fence, the skull crushed, and a pool of blood on Mr. Bruce's side of the fence.
So the bird's head was on his property.
Yes, ma'am. You can tell from the photos the neck has been stretched where the dog tried to pull the bird over and tried to dig its way under to pull it through the fence.
Clearly, the deceased bird's head is on his property, and according to you, the cause of death was trauma to the head.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, will you want to explain to me your theory of how the bird's head got on his property? Because you would agree, sir, if the bird's head was on his property and you knew that he had this dog there,
yes,
then he's not liable.
Well, I've approached him on 2 or 3 occasions and asked him, because Mr. Bruce also has a large dog, a Labrador, I believe it is. And, you know, his dog barks at the birds, but it's not a real problem. When Mr. Carter moved in with a Rott, it became obvious that the Rottweiler was very antagonistic. And I asked him two or three times to restrain the Rott until he got accustomed to the birds, as the Labrador was.
Well, how'd you want him to restrain the dog?
Just keep him in the corral area until he got used to being around the birds. Instead of doing that, he turned him loose in the backyard.
Well, it's his backyard.
Well, that's true.
It's his
I
backyard.
just asked him as common courtesy.
Well, but you understand as a common courtesy, he doesn't have to do that. First of all,
well, he
Mr.
didn't.
Blaylock, you were violating the law by having that many birds, right?
He's violating the law by being there, living in the tack room.
Why?
Zoning restrictions.
Well, that certainly, sir, was not raised in any of your papers that he's violating any
Yes,
law
ma'am,
by
it
living
was.
in the tack room. But that's not what you're complaining about.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If this dog killed this bird, I'll eat my hat.
And later today,
Got to keep that testosterone level, sir. You don't know who these people are. I mean, they could be even dumber than they are.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Larry Blaylock says his neighbor, Billy Ray Carter's Rottweiler, killed his ostrich. Billy Ray says the ostrich crossed over the line.
I still would like you to give me your theory of how this dog got your bird's head underneath the fence and onto his property.
Well, as you can probably deduce from the photographs, no one actually saw the bird attack, or the dog attack. I can only just guess that the bird was trying to get something under the fence. The dog approached, and when the bird tried to get away, it probably hit its head on the fence or something, couldn't get back in. And the dog killed it.
So what you're saying is your bird went under the fence to try to get something. And then when
I'm assuming that. No one actually saw it.
So how can you sue him for the cost of your bird? I mean, under either scenario, nobody saw it. And assuming the best of what you tell me, Mr. Blaylock.
Well, it's obvious his dog killed my bird.
But that's not the relevant point, sir. The relevant point is your bird was trespassing on his property. And he's allowed to have a dog. Dogs and ostriches clearly don't get along.
Putting one's head over a fence line does not constitute trespassing, does it?
Not one's head, an ostrich head. As you said, sir, the dumbest creature in creation.
Well, in that context, then if his horse comes over my fence, I can shoot it.
No. No, there's a difference, sir, between you shooting, you as a human being shooting one of his animals, and, for instance, 38 of your ostriches getting out of their cage and going into his property and stomping on his dog. Should you be responsible?
Yes, I would feel so.
Sure, because your animals went on to his property. Your animal went on to his property.
No, ma'am.
That dog,
No, it didn't.
Well, you just told me that, sir. Your
Said he
animal's
stuck
head
it.
went onto his property.
The
This
bird put
dog,
his head under the fence. It did not touch his property.
If your bird's head hadn't been on his property, your bird wouldn't be dead. And your bird is clearly dead. I feel sorry for you, sir, but this dog is a dog. And animals, you know, if you watch the Discovery Channel, animals kill each other, they go after each other, they mutilate each other. I mean, that's life. That's why you put up a fence. You're supposed to have a fence that keeps your animals on your side and his animals on his side. Your animal got on his side. I don't understand the theory of how you believe he's responsible for the loss of your animal. Okay. Anything you want to say to me?
I do have a video that I think would show maybe what Mr. Blaylock's trying to say. It's up to your honor if you'd like to see it.
I love to see movies.
Stay.
Stay right there. That's the video?
Yes.
This going to show me the ostriches?
The first part of it shows where the incident happened itself. This is a home video, so it's...
Am I going to see ostriches?
Yes, ma'am. This is the incident right here. This is the hole that was made. This is the area where the bird was found. We also have pictures from animal control that they took. These are what the birds do. Areas Mr. Bradlock is correct. They're really good fence trimmers. They will get very, very close, but I've never seen one come under, but I guess if they really wanted to, they would. What we want to point out here, though, is there is no barrier between his birds and any of our animals, or horses, or even our dogs.
Knowing that these are valuable birds, knowing the stupidity of these animals, why didn't he take proper precaution on his part? Other ostrich breeders have done this.
Well, the birds were there for months before this dog got there. With the other dog, no problem.
Sir, that's not particularly relevant. I mean, if Mr. Bruce here wants to have 3 Rottweilers on his property, that is a Rottweiler, correct?
Yes.
He can do that. That's his property. He doesn't have to safeguard your birds. You have to safeguard your birds. And if that means putting up an additional fence, then you put up an additional fence. He doesn't have to be nice to your birds. That's not his problem. That's your problem. This case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They wasn't trespassing. He's doing what birds do. And don't say a dog did what dogs do, because dogs don't kill things just for the sport of it.
If he wanted that bird, there would not have been much evidence as far as that neck. He would have eaten it.
And now the next case.
Parties on Plant versus Goulet. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Jared Platt is suing 27-year-old Steve Goulet, the future stepfather of 16-year-old Eric Gustafson. Jared says Steve smashed his truck window in a late-night parking lot showdown.
All right, let me understand this. You two gentlemen found yourselves in a deserted parking lot of an elementary school at 10:30 at night.
Yes.
Ready for combat. You, sir, in your complaint say that the defendant intentionally damaged your car by hitting it with some sort of a baton.
Right.
He says you tried to kill him by running him over, and he was defending himself. So, Mr. Plant, first, why don't you tell me, how old are you, sir?
18.
You go to high school?
College.
Were you in high school at the time of this incident?
It was in the summer.
So you were just graduated from high school?
Right.
You on some sort of a team in high school?
Football.
Football. I don't know why I just knew you were on the football team. And something happened, according to these papers, with this young man right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So why don't you start by telling me the story?
All right, we went to a movie, and we were coming home, and we pulled up next to him at a stoplight, and they took off, and they flicked us off, and...
They what?
Hand gestures to us.
Gave you a nasty hand gesture?
Yeah, so we followed...
Which offended your manhood?
Sure, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Look at the size of him, look at the size of him. It's gonna take 5 people to come beat up on one little kid. Just kids being bullies.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 18-year-old Jared Platt says his truck window was smashed by 16-year-old Eric Gustafson's future stepfather, Steve Goulet, during a late-night parking lot showdown.
Go ahead.
And so we just followed him around for a while, and then we went back to Travis's house. And,
to Travis?
Right.
That's you.
And one of the kids knew who he was, and we looked him up in the yearbook, and another kid that isn't here called his house, and whoever answered said, meet us at the parking lot in 5 minutes. So we went there.
Mr. Platt, why did you call his house?
I didn't, another kid
Why
did.
did somebody call the house?
I don't know what to tell you.
Well, why did you accompany them to the parking lot when somebody called the house?
Because they said, let's go to the park, and so I went. There really was no reason behind going.
Except dumbness.
Right.
So here you are at a parking lot, according to this, 10:30 at night.
Right.
And then what happened?
Well, we were parked on one side, and he was on the other side.
Who's he?
The defendant. And we were parked.
The defendant, you, sir, are his stepfather.
Soon to be, yes.
So you are engaged to his mother.
Yes.
We'll get to why you went to the parking lot in a second. I'm dying to hear why. Yes, so now here you are in the parking lot. They on one side, you on the other.
Yep.
Ready to joust.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And we were parked parallel, facing opposite directions, and he jumped out of the car, and he went like this, and there was a click, and I thought it was either a gun or a knife. So I took off, and he came up from behind and hit the back windshield.
You mean when he got out of the car, how close was he to you when he got out of the car?
Well, he was probably 10, 15 feet.
And then he hit your car window.
Right.
And smashed it.
Right.
Let's start with the telephone call. You're home in the evening, and you get a phone call.
Yes.
Who answered the phone?
I did.
And there was a voice on the other end that said what?
Started off with, we're going to come over and kick your effing ass, and we're coming to your house, and all this, and this went on, and I was just going, uh-huh. And I said, okay, and I wasn't sure what the problem was, and they said, we're coming over to your house right now. I said, okay, if you guys want to talk about this, that's fine. Let's go to the park. We'll talk about this. I don't want them at my house. I don't need those problems at my house. I figured, go up to the park, they'll see an adult, calm down, talk about it, dispute will be over. It's not how it happened. Go up to the park, pull in the parking lot. There's two entrances, one on the east side, one on the west side. I pulled in on the east, they pulled in on the west, facing each other about this far. I exit my vehicle. I approach their vehicle. I said, which one of you guys called my house? All of a sudden, they just peeled out and came right at me. I struck the vehicle in self-defense.
Mr. Goulet, you know how to get in touch with the police, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
27.
A little bit older than this young man.
Yes.
And who lives in your house?
Me, Eric, his brother Landon.
How old is his brother?
I just turned 14 or 13.
Mm-hmm. So a family lives there.
Yes.
Why didn't you, sir, when you got this phone call that these brats were going to come over to your house, why didn't you say, you ready to come over to the house? I can't do anything about that, and just hang up the phone and call the police? I'd say, I've just been threatened. My family has been threatened. There's a gang coming over to my house. Could you please send a police officer? Why do you think this is funny?
I don't know.
Why didn't you call the police?
I'm not sure exactly.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Hindsight is 20/20, but you take this young man, who's a young teenager, you put him in a dangerous situation by taking him to a parking lot late at night. You don't know who these people are. I mean, they could be even dumber than they are. They could be. They could have weapons. They could have hurt you. Not smart. You know? Got to keep that testosterone level, sir. So your car was damaged to what extent, sir?
The back windshield was completely busted, and I had to buy a new one.
And how much did that cost you?
$300. I have the receipt right here if you want to look at it.
No, you could tell me. How much did it cost you?
It was $344.50.
Pay for it. This case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I have to pay for it?
I'll calculate you right, please.
And on the next Judge Judy.
Parties on Perez versus Perez. Step forward, please.
22-year-old Christina Perez is suing her husband's ex-wife, 31-year-old Diana Perez. Christina claims Diana assaulted her during an argument. Diana Perez says she was the one injured.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 246 on the calendar in the matter of Perez versus Perez. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
You are the present Mrs. Perez.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Perez, you are Mrs. Perez, the former wife of this gentleman.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
According to your complaint, former Mrs. Perez assaulted you.
Yes, she did.
You want damages.
Yes.
She has a counterclaim She claims that you assaulted her first. She wants similar damages.
No, Your Honor, I didn't do that, anything.
Well, this took place when you were returning the children. There are 2 children?
Yes.
Three
Actually, there's
children. 3
3.
children. To your home after a period of visitation.
Yes.
Is that? So tell me what happened.
Well, we went to go drop off the boys.
How old are the children?
One's 10 and one's 7. We only had the 2 boys with us at the time. We went to go drop them off. It was late that night. My husband wanted to talk to her concerning one of the boys being sexually abused. He spoke with her, tried to work things out, talked to her. She started getting mad. She charged at him, started screaming back and forth at each other. I got in the middle because of the fact that the children were crying and screaming inside the home. I told my husband, let's go so it won't get out of hand, which she got mad. She struck me on my right side, and after that, my husband did hit her, and she landed inside her house.
Well, when you say she struck you, did she strike you with a fist, her open hand? How did
I didn't see when it was coming. I don't know how she hit me, but she hit me.
Did you have any injuries?
Yes, I did.
What were your injuries?
My jaw shifted. She hit me on the right side, which it shifted my lower jaw to over here, which now I have a torn joint in my jaw, which I have doctor proofs in here. And he did make a little notation on here, what I sustained from it.
How long have you been married to your husband?
I've been with him for 4 years, 3-4 years.
And how long have you been divorced?
4 years.
What was this discussion about one of the children being sexually abused?
During the weekend we had them, their son told us what was going on. My husband called the health and welfare, called the police department, tried to get something done. They said they couldn't do anything about it unless the child was endangered over there, which when we got to their residence, the other child was there at the time, and my husband...
You mean there was some allegation, according to you, that there was another child in the defendant's residence who had been sexually abusing
their children.
Their children. Both boys or just one? And you wanted to talk to her about it?
Yes. Because this had happened before, like about 2 years before.
Step up here.
Yes, because this had happened before, like about 2 years before. I brought it to her attention, and then she didn't let me see the kids for about a year.
That's absolutely untrue.
She said that I guess they had taken care of it. I called the health and welfare and everything. They never got back to me. And that's why this ended up like this.
Well, why did you pick this particular time to speak to her? When you took the children back?
It's the only time when I drop them off, when there's a chance to talk to her, because I really don't talk to her. Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's very unfortunate that the two of you can't talk. Did you put your hands on her that evening?
After
is not an answer. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I did. I hit her.
Why did you hit her?
Because she started charging at me, telling me all this. She took out the little boy that has been sexually abusing my boy. He's like about 5-6 years older, and she made him confront him. She put them both in front of each other. My little boy, he was shaking. He was scared because he was going to get beat up by this little boy. It's still going to happen. And he was scared, and she started screaming like, what? After she hit my wife, she said, what, are you going to hit him? And I said, no, I'm going to hit you. And that's what happened. I did. I struck her.
How many times?
I don't remember. All I remember is I lost it. It must have been like 3-4 times.
Were you arrested?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
He has been charged.
And my wife even pulled me off of her because she didn't want that to happen, but still did.
She did not touch her, Your Honor.
How old is this other little boy that's in the house, and how is he related to your former wife?
He's her nephew. Yeah. And
How old is he?
He's like about 13, 14.
He's
my little
11.
boy's like 7.
He's 11 years old.
It's 11?
Yes.
Okay, let me come to you. I'd like you to tell me your version of the events of that evening.
Your Honor, can I have the girl stepped out for a minute? I mean, there's some sections here that I would rather them not hear.
Are these your daughters?
This is my daughter, and this is her friend.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Step out.
Just for a minute, and because there's some issues that before, and it involves one of my daughters, and I would rather her not be present when I talk about it. I divorced Mr. Perez because of violence.
Domestic violence?
Yes. During the divorce, because it was really hectic for my children, I took them to counseling. And in one of the counseling sessions, my daughter revealed to the counselor that she was being molested by her grandfather, paternal grandfather.
Paternal?
Yes.
Grandfather.
That was reported to the police and whatnot. Mr. Perez in turn countered that and started saying, at this time my nephew was 7 years old, my son was 6, and my other son was 4. In order to get back at me, he started saying that my 7-year-old was molesting my 6 and my 4-year-old. They called child services. We took all the children in for interviewing, and it was determined that the kids were playing. You show me yours, you show me mine. It was that kind of relationship that, at that time. Now, they come to my house that day and saying that my child had told her child, made a comment to her child. I talked to my little boy about this, and we have taken him to counseling also regarding this.
Why did you take him to counseling?
Because they've been so traumatized by all this. You have to understand, Your Honor, these people have been torturing me for 4 years. I mean, between taking me to court, I have been to court about 20 times since I divorced. For protection orders, for getting beaten up, for modification of child support, for everything.
Okay.
Anyway, we were at the house that day. I didn't have any milk, so I had to run to the store. I left my daughter and Veronica in charge. They were there. They came and dropped off the boys, and I wasn't home. I was at the store getting milk, and then I wasn't home. So they called the police on me again, because they called the police on me for everything, saying that the kids were unattended.
So let me understand this. You dropped the children off, and then you called the police.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
They didn't ask to be born. You made them. And your primary responsibility is supposed to see to it that they have happy childhoods.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Diana Perez is being sued by her ex-husband's new wife, 22-year-old Christina Perez. Christina charges that Diana hit her in the jaw, causing serious injury. But Diana says she was only defending herself.
You dropped the children off, and then you called the police.
No, we didn't drop the children off at that time with the girls. My husband wanted to talk to her regarding their children.
So you kept the children in the car?
Yes, we went to a police department.
Mr. Perez, so you didn't drop the children off?
No.
You put the children back in the car, or they remained in the car?
Yes.
And you drove directly to the police station? Yes. And what did you tell the police?
I just told them that she's not there, because she always does this. I'm supposed to drop them off at 7. It was
Just
already
a second.
12 o'clock.
Just a second. What did you tell the police? I didn't ask your whole history.
Okay, I just told them that basically that's it. That I went to drop them off. I already went like about 4 times. She's not there. And in the divorce decree, it says that I should drop them off at 7, pick them up at 7, and drop them off at 7. That's what it was all about.
How old are these 2 girls?
I think my daughter's 13. I don't know about the other one. I don't even know who she is.
Your daughter is 13?
12.
Or 12, going to 13.
And your 2 sons that you were dropping off?
That time he was 6, and the other one's like 9.
9 and 6?
Yes.
Why couldn't their sister watch them?
I could have left her off, but I want to talk to her.
You could have left them off?
Yes.
Now, you drove back at 10, and you say she wasn't home at 10. Did you go back to the police again?
No, we called them up.
Called who?
Home, the police department from our home, to let them know that she wasn't home yet and what was going on. We let them know, and they told us we would have to get a hold of the health and welfare.
Just a second. At 10 o'clock, the girls were home.
Yes.
So why didn't you bring the children home instead of calling the police?
Because he wanted to talk to Diana concerning the boys.
It wasn't urgent to talk to her that night. Certainly not urgent enough to call the police. You folks, I don't know about what's happening on her side, the history of what's going on there, but you people are not behaving like responsible parents. You're behaving like vindictive babies. And you're putting your children in the middle, because whenever you bring the police into something, you put the children in the middle. Ridiculous.
Excuse me, Your Honor. The only reason I bring the police into it, because there's been a lot of occasions where I get busy or something, and she calls the police department.
That's
and
terrible.
They want to pick me up.
Just a second. You mean you get busy and don't bring the children home on time?
More like I only see him like sometimes she doesn't really let me see him for 3 or 4 months.
Mr.
So when I
Perez.
do see him, I try to take him out, go do something. with him.
Mr. Perez, I'm hearing a lot of excuses from this end. Now, I don't agree with using children, custodial parents, if they happen to be mothers using the children. I just don't like the vibes that I'm getting over here, sir. Something in my common sense and my training suggests to me that there's a lot more here than I'm going to have time to hear today. How much child support do you pay?
$360 a month.
When was the last time you went back to have that modified?
I'm supposed to be in court tomorrow.
For what?
Modification on it.
Whose modification?
Mine, I guess, yeah.
What do you mean you guess?
Yeah, well, it's mine.
It's your petition to modify downward the order of support.
Yes.
From $360 a month?
Yes.
For 3 children?
Yes.
Why?
Because where I used to work before, I used to make a lot more money, and they closed the plant. I'm out of that job, so I ended up, to be able to pay the child support, I could have got unemployment, but I figured, no, I got to pay my child support, so I went and got another job. It went like 2.5 less an hour, so that's why I'm getting the modification.
How many times have you gone for a modification? Mr. Perez, how many modification petitions have you filed in the last 4 years?
This is it.
This is the second one.
4. Okay. Now, I would like to see the initial police report from you, Mrs. Perez. Can I see it, please? What was the date of this incident, by the way?
The ended up being on the 25th because it was late that night, so they did 24th, 25th.
Okay. Now let me see the medical bill, please.
These are...
Were you arrested that night, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I knew I did wrong, so I just went and turned myself in.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
And
This is what I look like after I got beat up by him.
It would have been worse, Diana. He could have killed you there.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Gabriel Perez's current wife, Christina Perez, is suing Gabriel's ex-wife, Diana Perez, claiming Diana assaulted her during an argument. Diana says her ex-husband injured her.
You didn't go to see a doctor until 2 days after this incident. Mrs. Perez, is that right?
I went right the next day, Your Honor.
No. 2 days later. This happened on the 24th. You went and just
Actually, it was the 25th late that night. And the police officer did neglect me medical attention, so I had to go on my own.
He neglected?
Yes, he did.
Did you go to the doctor before or after your husband was arrested for assault?
I went after.
Yeah, I got it. Now, I understand it. You don't get $5,000 for a slap. I don't see anything here about injuries, madam. And I don't know why you got in between these two people. I have no idea. You had no business being there. You had no business getting in between these two people. Now, you, with regard to your counterclaim, are suing the wrong person.
Pardon me?
You're suing the wrong person.
Oh.
He's the one you should be suing.
I know.
He was the one who injured you. And according to the police reports here, you were pretty severely beaten. He sort of acknowledges that he severely beat you. He lost it. I assume that it's not the first time he lost it.
No.
Yes, it was.
Baloney.
Never hit her before.
Well, then maybe the other times that you hit her,
I've
you
never
hit her
hit
on
her before.
purpose.
Never hit her before.
You two people present a very sad commentary on what happens when people separate. You are remarried, you have a new wife. You have any new children with your new wife?
Yes, I do.
How many children?
2.
2. Do you work?
Yes, I do.
So you work inside the house or outside
Inside the house.
In the house. What do you do?
I have a child daycare, which I am licensed to have one.
Fine.
I
Well,
went to
that's
school
good.
for it.
That's good. All right, because I assume you know he has prior financial obligations to the 3 children that he had before
Yes,
he
Your
made
Honor,
more children.
I've been divorced before. I know how it goes. I was dealing with her before with the child custody of the kids so they could visit their father. I would talk for both of them.
Well, that's a big mistake.
Yes, it is a big mistake.
Big
I
mistake.
tried to get them to do
especially
it.
when, Mrs. Perez, it's a big mistake, especially when a portion of your husband's salary is going to support his other 3 children. And there's not a lot of money to go around, so that makes you a little bit irritated.
I know he has obligations, which
Well,
is okay with me, because $360 a month is not even hardly enough to support
It
the
sure
children.
isn't, especially when he's going to have it reduced. $360 for 3 children a month doesn't keep a cocker spaniel in puppy chow. Certainly not 3 growing children. So I don't believe she injured you, madam. I don't believe that this slap, which you refer to as a slap, caused you any injury whatsoever. Let me tell you what I think.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
What I think is that you got very nervous when your husband lost it and was arrested for assaulting her, because he assaulted her and you know he injured her.
Yes,
because,
I know that's right.
Because,
I tried to
because
prevent
according
it.
to these reports, there was blood all over the place. According to the reports by the police, there was blood all over the place. So then I believe that you and your husband came up with this story to try to soften it a little bit, that she was the one who instigated the whole thing by assaulting you. Now, you were not denied assistance by the police. There were no visible signs of any injury on you when the police arrived. None whatsoever. Your case is dismissed. You, on the other hand, madam, are suing the wrong person civilly. He's the one you ought to be suing. I suggest that you do it so that you can get damages from him, so the next time he loses his temper, he'll know what's going to cost him.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as your children are concerned, you got to do the right thing with regard to your children. If he has a legitimate concern with regard to what's going on in your house with a now 12 or 13-year-old, you have to take that very seriously. Yes, I do. And you have to stop thinking that it's just in retaliation. If it's true that when he confronted you with this allegation, you put both boys together, very bad thing to do. You have to be protective of your own child.
Yes, definitely.
And make sure that this is not going on in your home, because very often parents are the last to know.
Definitely.
You have to stop abusing the system, sir. Abusing the police system, abusing the child welfare system, in order to gain an upper hand in whatever kind of proceedings you have, whether they be support proceedings, whether they be visitation proceedings, whether they be custody proceedings. And the two of you have to recognize that together you made 3 children. The 3 children are the innocents. They didn't ask to be born. You made them. And your primary responsibility is supposed to see to it that they have happy childhoods. And right now, you're not doing that. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy...
Oshrin versus Stimson. Step forward, please.
27-year-old Carolyn Oshrin is suing 31-year-old Frank Stimson for assault. Carolyn alleges she suffered injuries after Frank hit her during a traffic dispute. He says she kicked him first.
Order. All rise. Quiet, please.
Now, this is case number 233 on the calendar in the matter of Oshrin versus Stimson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am, sir.
All right, this case involves a traffic dispute. Miss Oshrin, you look like an otherwise intelligent lady. Got yourself involved with this dispute.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell me about it, please?
It was Saturday night, and I was going to get dinner for my husband. I was waiting at a left-hand turn on Sherman Way, which is a busy street.
What kind of a car were you driving?
I was driving a rental car. It was a little Mercury Mystique, I believe. And I was sitting there waiting for traffic to go. There was 2 more cars that needed to go by. It was a little distance between, but not enough. And while I was sitting there, another car came up and started blaring on the horn at me. Didn't let off. So I waited, made my turn, the car tailgated me, and followed me into the parking lot where I was going, which was another left in there. And so I turned down the first row of cars, you know, trying to go where I needed to go and get out of the way. And started to go towards the right, and car, you know, kind of punched it a little bit to the right, so I just stopped, figuring, go around me, I'm not moving. And I had a
And it
dog.
was the same car that had been
Yeah,
blowing
it was the same one
the
tailgating
horn.
me.
What kind of car was that?
Well, I couldn't tell until it was later, and it was a '81 Toyota truck.
Truck.
Little pickup. It was small.
Driver.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
And so anyway, then when I stopped, I had a dog in the car that I was trying to adopt, and so I checked on the dog just because she's nervous anyway. And when I looked up, there was, you know, the defendant was walking down towards me, you know, towards my car. So I locked the door, and he came up, kneeled down, and told me I got my license from a Cracker Jack box. And so he kneeled there for a second, paused, he got up, and leaned forward and spit through the crack I had in my window in my face. So, and then he turned around and walked back, and I got out to get his license plate. His car was parked like maybe an inch off of mine, and what I could see, there was no plate. So I started to walk back, and when I started to walk, he turned around again, and so I yelled at him for spitting in my face, and he turned around, and we ended up in a kicking fight. He started kicking me, so I kicked him back, and finally I just, you know, I didn't kick it, but I pushed the door with my foot, because it was at an angle, and he was on one side, and it pushed him back into the truck. So I went back to my car, and as I was walking back to the car, he came up and grabbed me by the shoulder and kind of pushed me and started to beat up the car, tried kicking my car. Then he turned around and came at me again. So, and, you know, he ended up spitting in my face. So I was holding him back because he was walking at me. And by the time we kind of did like a circle and came back by the car, and the car was on the side of me. So I was, you know, while I'm holding him back, there was a girl that came walking down from the other side, you know, quickly at us. So I glanced at her, and when I glanced at her, he hit me in the jaw. So.
And then what happened?
Well, my head went that way, and then I turned around and I ducked. And when I did that, I ended up ripping his shirt because I was still holding. And somebody grabbed my arm, you know, for the other direction. So I went that way, and when I looked up, he had 4 or 5 people holding him back. So I went back again to try to get the license plate, and I guess they let him go because I was probably about halfway down there, and he came back and he started pushing me, and I walked like a big circle to the back, and finally got the plate, you know, and he turned around and left once he realized, I guess, what I got.
All right. What kind of medical costs did you have?
I've got chiropractic and for my my jaw. It was actually, it's a specialist. He went through 2 referrals to get to it. He wants, together they're like 44, 60-something, 64 right now. Here's another one. This goes with it. That's all, everything. The bill's right behind it.
I have a lot of questions to ask you.
Okay.
The first one that comes to my mind, as a woman, if some nut comes up to your car and you know that he's been tailgating you, and I don't think that there's any question that he was tailing you, because I read your complaint and I read his answer. So common sense suggests to me he was annoyed, honking his horn. You live in California? It's surprising. People in California don't blow their horns a lot. You know, people in New York blow their horns if you know, delayed a split second. Here, everybody sort of hangs out and gives you a chance. I found the drivers here very polite. So, where are you from?
California.
Well, you didn't learn the rules, sir. The rules are you're not supposed to honk your horn.
I beat my horn briefly. I did not lay on the horn.
I didn't say lay on the horn. I said honk your horn. You honked your horn.
Yes, I did. If someone sits at a green light with no oncoming cars for a good 10 to 15 seconds, they either have car problems or they're just ignorant.
Well, maybe she had car problems.
She obviously didn't.
I'll get to you in a minute. It's going to be interesting. I'm not finished with you yet because I'm trying to figure out whether you have all your screws.
Okay.
He comes up to your car, says something that is, it's aggressive. It's aggressive because he stopped his car, he's gotten out of his car, he's approached your car, and you don't know whether he's a nut, right? Somebody dangerous, or just a flake, right? You have your window open a little bit. According to you, he spits in your face. And you get out of the car?
Yeah, I did.
Who are you?
I'm Dan Moran. I witnessed what happened that night.
Wonderful. Perfect. You would agree with me, Mr. Moran, that that's pretty stupid.
That was my first question.
Perfect. For that, you don't have an answer.
No. Well, I wanted his plate.
Your life is more important than his license plate.
True.
And then, after he's put his hands on you, after he struck you in the jaw, after all of that, you still wanted his plate.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I want to tell you something. Somebody spits at me, and you would have had a lot more than a couple of scratches on your body. A lot!
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 27-year-old Carolyn Oshrin is suing 31-year-old Frank Stimson for assault during a traffic dispute. Frank admits he insulted Carolyn, but denies her allegations of assault.
Now your version.
I drove up to the light. She was at the light in front of me, a green light. No traffic was oncoming at that time. I waited for about 10 to 15 seconds. I beeped my horn briefly. She pulled forward approximately 5 to 10 feet and slammed on her brakes. I waited, kind of scratched my head and said, wow, what's that about? She pulled forward through the intersection after that, and when she got into the crosswalk on the other side, she slammed on her brakes again. I sat in the middle of the street with the car coming towards the passenger side of my car, and then the same thing happened again in the next driveway. She consistently tried to get me to rear-end her.
No, she wasn't. She was probably trying to irritate you. This lady, what do you think? She's a scam artist? She was trying to get you to rear-end her? No, she was trying to irritate you
She's
like you
driving
irritated
a rental
her.
car. She doesn't care about the car. She wants money. That's why we're here.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Let me hear.
When we got in the parking lot, she moved along at a snail's pace.
Just a second. How many lanes are there in the parking lot?
There's one going forward and one going the opposite
So
way.
there's only one way that you could have gone? Is that what you're telling me? Because there's a witness here.
Yes. There's
only one lane that you can go to.
No, I was following her because I wanted to ask her why she was trying to get me to hit her.
That's right. So you were following her.
At that point, yes.
Okay. Why were you following her?
Why was I following her? Because we were both happened to be going the same way at the time. I was going in to develop some film. I don't know why she pulled in the parking lot.
Just a second. You don't... Stupid isn't written here. You just told me that you were following her. That's what you told me. You could have avoided the confrontation by just going in a different direction. So, you stopped your truck, and you got out of your truck, and you walked over to her side, to the driver's window. And what happened at the driver's window?
I had asked her if she got her driver's license out of a Cracker Jack box.
And she said?
She didn't say anything. She just stared at me and laughed.
And what did you do?
I laughed back. I told her that she was kind of a ridiculous driver, acting like a child, and she should go get a real driver's license.
Did you spit at her?
No, I did not.
Oh, I think you're lying.
I did not. I may have used lots of profanity, but I did not spit at her.
You may have used lots of profanity.
I was kind of upset. Anytime someone tries to get rear-ended, something's wrong with them. I told her what I thought.
She wasn't trying to get rear-ended, sir.
She was. If you do this 5 to 6 times, slam on your brakes, that's not normal.
You know what's not normal? Not normal is looking for trouble. Now,
that's what she was doing.
No. Listen to me. Yes. You started it. She continued it. Right?
Okay.
Is that right? You were annoyed that he honked his horn. Correct?
Yeah, I was annoyed.
So that when you got to the intersection, when you made your turn, and he was following you, you figured, I'm going to give him a little bit of agita. And you slowed down. Is that right?
I went slow because it wasn't far to turn.
And you went slow because you knew that he was behind you. That's what happened. Right?
Yeah, but there's another lane there too, so.
I understand that. He could have gone around you.
Yeah.
He didn't want to. So you were being dumb.
Okay.
And he was being dumb. So, I don't think you would have gotten out of your car if he had not spit at you.
Nope.
Because there would have been no basis for her, sir, to try at that point to get your plate. None whatsoever. So I believe that you spit at her while using profanity. Now,
I used lots of profanity. I
step
did not
up here,
spit.
sir.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
know this lady?
No, I don't.
Do you know this gentleman?
No, I don't.
I'm going to settle this right now. Tell me what you saw.
When I was finished doing my shopping there in the center, I have a convertible car, so I saw everything. It was very unusual. They were making a left turn into the parking lot from Sherman Way into the driveway. It's a very short distance. I see these two cars come in, and the guy was no further than this far behind her, bumper, right on her butt, right on the bumper. He gets out, and at first I'm thinking, well, is this like from a movie? It's like, it was so surreal that, well, it must be a couple, they must be fighting, a domestic dispute, something like that. But what happened, this guy gets out of his car and starts screaming at her. She's got a little crack like that in the window. And I'm like, what is this? And he spits at her, puts a big old loogie on her. And I at first I said, well, when I saw her get out of the car, I thought, well, it must be a domestic thing. Hey, I got on the cell phone. I called the police right away. And then all of a sudden, there's 5 other guys on top of this dude trying to restrain him from beating her up. I don't blame her for jumping out of her car. This guy was totally out of control, very out of line. So
See what happens? Sometimes you have an independent witness, sir.
He is not an independent witness.
Oh, tell
Nobody
me.
put their hands on me.
Just a
but
second.
her.
Just a second.
I should be able to state the rest of my case.
I'm going to let you. I just want you to listen to him before you state the rest of your case.
How close
he doesn't
was he?
know. He doesn't know.
How can he see any of this?
He just told you. He was in his convertible car. He saw exactly how you came in. Is that right, sir?
The cars were no further than the edge of that table
away
there.
were you?
I was right to the right side of it. So I saw all
And
the...
you were the one who called the police.
From my cell phone, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You got to go on the women's wrestling team, man. You have a nice day.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 27-year-old Carolyn Oshrin and Frank Stimson are in court after a traffic dispute turned violent. Both motorists claim they were assaulted during their argument in a parking lot.
Mr. Stimson, tell me the rest of your case, sir.
Okay, so when I started walking away after I gave her a piece of my mind, not my lungs, I started walking away. She exited her car, ran towards me. I backed up. She ran over and kicked the side of my truck. I said, if that's what you want to do, I went over and kicked her car. She said, it's not my car anyway, ha, 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 and started yelling and screaming at me. She came at me. She tried to kick me approximately 20 to 30 times, at least, swinging at me. At one point, she got a hold of my shirt, and she socked me in the face. At that point, and only at that point, did I raise a hand, and I pushed her away to try to get away from her. And I have a witness sitting right here who watched the whole thing also.
Step up. Name?
Marcia Gerard. We were just like, we were turning left, and it was a long time before she did turn. And she did make a couple of breaks before she entered the driveway, and then stopped at the crosswalk. Then we followed her in, or Frank followed her in, turned left, and followed right behind her. He did get out of the car, went to her, and I...
Just a second. Now, you're in the car. What is he saying to you as he's pulling up behind her?
He's just saying, what is wrong? You know, is there something wrong with this lady or
no,
the person?
exactly what is he saying? I don't think that this man said, I wonder what's wrong with this lady.
No, he did. He said, what is wrong? Does she not go, or is she sick or something? Is there something wrong?
He thought she might be sick. Is
yeah,
that what you're
something,
telling
or
me?
else she's injured or something. I mean, she would not go. He honked the horn a couple of times.
So he thought she might be injured, so he ran up to the car and, according to him, said, did you get your license from a Cracker Jack box?
Yes.
He didn't go up to the car and say, are you all right?
No.
So he wasn't so concerned that she was sick, because that's what you would do if somebody is sick. Well, are you an intelligent woman?
Yes, I am.
Did you say to him, Frank, don't get out of the car. This isn't worth... What are you getting out of the car for? Did you say that to him?
No.
Why not?
I just figured he'd handle it himself. Sir.
One important fact that hasn't been brought up yet, this clown, after he assaulted this woman, this clown left the scene.
I was the one that was
He
assaulted,
left
sir.
the scene. He drove away as the police were arriving and went home, I guess, and made the call because the police got the call because he knew he had screwed up and filed a claim against her, which is totally wrong.
It's so easy when you have an eyewitness who's not related to anybody. What kind of work do you do, sir?
I work in retailing as a business consultant.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, sir, I thank you for coming to court today. Too often citizens who see something happen don't participate in the
I
process.
felt it was my civic duty, ma'am.
You waited for the police?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Stayed through the whole thing. She was traumatized.
Well, I want to tell you something. She may be traumatized, but she's not smart.
Well,
She was just lucky
Yes.
that he didn't have more than his spit
Yeah.
to hurl at her.
Yeah.
Because he might have, and then she would have been in real trouble.
Very true.
So I hope, madam, that you learned a lesson. A car is a dangerous thing. You don't use it to get even. You don't use it to, you just don't do that. It's not smart. But if you're involved in a dispute with somebody, whether you're a man or a woman, you stay in your car. And if you have a phone in your car, terrific. Otherwise, you drive around and look for a police officer or for somebody else and say, could you please call 911? You don't get out of your car, because otherwise you wind up with that sort of injury.
True.
I would like to say I've got pictures. Now, I was the one attacked here, and if your statement is so correct, why don't you state what you really saw as far as the altercation went, to where a man is backing away from a woman and a woman is coming at him aggressively, swinging, kicking, and flailing.
Well,
Thank you.
Just answer me.
Obviously, this man was filled with road rage. And it's very obvious. The way that he pulled in right on, it was so weird.
Does
you see someone pulling
have
apart?
anything to do with
Excuse me,
physical
I have the
abuse?
floor.
Just a
Excuse
second.
me.
Did you see her assault him?
No, not at all.
Did you
No.
see anybody kick a car?
You're at fault here, fella.
Did you see anybody kick a car? Stop fighting with each other. Listen to me. I heard enough.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You're suing him for $5,000. You're counterclaiming for $2,000.
Yes.
You, sir.
Would you like to see the physical abuse? I've got pictures.
Oh, sure. I'll take a look at
many
your pictures.
scratches.
I'll take a look
and
at your pictures.
abrasions.
I'll take a look at your picture, sir. I want to tell you something. Somebody spits at me, and there isn't a question in my mind that you spit at her. Somebody did it to me. You would have had a lot more than a couple of scratches on your body. A lot.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Judgment
If I
in this
had
case is
spit
for the
at-
plaintiff in
if
the
I
amount
had
of
spit at her.
$5,000, and the countersuit is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And
Hipsher versus Lemos. Step forward, please.
32-year-old Irene Hipsher is suing her former fiancé, John Lemos, claiming that he stole her pet dog, Buddy, and secretly kept him for 2 years. John says he refuses to return the dog because it was neglected.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 251 on the calendar in the matter of Hipsher versus Lemos. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am. Gentlemen, have a seat.
This is a really interesting case. Miss Hipsher, this is your dog, Buddy.
That's my dog, Buddy.
Don't cry yet, okay? Because you have to tell me what happened.
I know.
So take a deep breath. You want some water?
Yeah, I'll take some. Thank
Okay.
you.
According to these papers, you and the defendant lived together with your 2 children. I assume that these are your 2 kids.
Yes.
The relationship was going south. You, Mr. Lemos, wanted her out of your house with the 2 children.
Correct.
And she was living there with the kids and Buddy.
Exactly.
According to your papers, you started eviction proceedings against her, correct?
Yes.
I'm not going to get into why. And sort of at the tail end of these eviction proceedings, it was about 4 months into trying to get her out of the house. According to your answer, you went over to the house and took her dog, right?
Correct.
You say you have a good reason for going over and taking the dog, but you took her dog.
She didn't know where the dog was for how long?
2.5 years.
And you had seen him during those 2.5 years?
I have telephone records otherwise and stuff to prove that him and I were in communication over the telephone, visiting each other at each other's homes, the whole 9 yards.
Had you discussed Buddy?
Yes, a lot.
When you came home and found Buddy missing, what did you do?
I immediately called John at his mom's house and stuff, and at which time he told me that he had no idea where my dog was. He had no inclination of, he says, Irene, I'm sorry, but no, I didn't have anything to do with that. I feel really bad. Made it sound like really personal and stuff. So I went, other than to the Contra Costa County Animal Control, and I set up, that's when I started setting up the missing reports or otherwise and stuff. I searched the premises, went around the blocks, went around all streets, even made up signs. But that's my family member. That's
okay. How long had you had Buddy at that time?
I had Buddy for 7 years before John took him.
Okay. Now, how did you ultimately find out that Mr. Lemos had your dog?
My son Joshua was playing with his new girlfriend's son. I have no idea what his name was, but he had mentioned, Joshua asked his son, how many dogs does John have? And the boy came back with 2. Well, John automatically saw that the conversation was happening, pulled away the child from my son and stuff and told him, no, you gotta, whatever, took him back, and then when the 2 confronted again, the 2 children, the boy says, oh no, I made a mistake. John only has 1 dog. He has Zeus.
So then your son came home and told this to you?
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is at his house, place of residence. I was visiting the neighborhood.
Okay, at his house, but not his mother's house?
No.
Which is where the dog finally ended up?
Yes.
You're his mother, correct? Yes. So tell me how you confronted him, ultimately.
I went to his house and stuff. Neither one of these 2 people were home, and whenever I looked over the fence, that's where I saw Buddy.
So you went to his mother's house?
Yeah, and that's whenever I found out that's whenever cause at first and stuff, I didn't let John know that what was being said between the kids or that I even questioned it, because if I did, he would have just ultimately ran with my dog. So I took it upon myself and stuff without even questioning him or without saying anything to him. I showed up at his mom's house knowing that she was at work and he was at work, showed up and just peered over the fence.
So then after you found out that they had your dog, what did you do?
I went to the San Leandro Police Department and filed a case against him and stuff, which I have copies of or otherwise. It's 9711035. Okay.
Did you call them and
yes,
say, I want my dog back?
Later on that
Who
day.
did you speak to?
I spoke to John at first. I just hear her in the background saying how she's going to kill my dog before she gives him back to me. She's going to put my dog down. I could hear her screaming in the background, yes, John. And then all of a sudden and stuff, he's telling me and stuff. At first, it was a good conversation. It was like, oh, no, how you doing? Oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden, I asked him, I says, John, I says, I heard you have my dog. You know, he says, Irene, I don't have your dog. I haven't seen him. I says, John, I was there. Ask your mom if I went by, because I went by her place of employment. She was hanging outside, and I went by in a nice little cute little red car and stuff, and honked my horn, and she's all, not knowing who the hell I was, because I'm sure she would have given me the #1 finger first. But she waving at me and everything and stuff. I called it up.
All right, Mr. Lemos. You took her dog, right?
Yes.
I'll hear your story.
Okay, the reason why I did take the dog was like the last 3 to 4 weeks before she finally got out of my house. She wasn't hardly even around at that time. All of her belongings were still there, but there was numerous times that I would go to my house, check on my house. We couldn't live together, of course, so I was staying at my mother's house. There was numerous times that I'd go out there and I would see that the dog had no food or water. And there was a couple of times that I had went out to my house, spent the night out there, and she never was there. I don't know where she was. I had no way of contacting her because I didn't know where she was, going from point A to point B. And so I had felt that the dog was being neglected because when I would go there, he wouldn't have any food or water. And I felt compassion for the dog, and I thought that I could give him a better home, which she could provide, because the last 4 weeks, it seemed to me like she could have cared less about the dog, or even trying to get out of my house, for that matter.
Mr. Lemos, I read your answer, sir. You know, judges are supposed to be able to relate to situations with a certain amount of common sense. Let me suggest to you what my common sense made from your answer. Let's pick a month. Let's say in December you decided to separate. She's living in your house with her 2 children. She says, I'm not moving now. You go down to municipal court, housing court, and file papers to have her evicted. she gets an extension of time. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what I did.
Because the judge looks at her 2 children, and says, I'm not going to put her out on the street tomorrow, even though it's his house. These people lived together for 2 years. She needs a little time to relocate. Meanwhile, you're getting more and more annoyed. So a month goes by, and 2 months go by, and you're getting hotter and hotter. And 3 months go by, and finally in month 4, you decide that the family pet is being neglected. So I'm going to take the family pet. Maybe next time, if you don't move, one of your children will be missing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When John first took him, I was crying because he was my pal.
And later today,
I hope that in the future you make your dream come true and you really become Carlotta.
This was not my dream.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 32-year-old Irene Hipscher is suing her former fiancé, John Lemos, for stealing her pet dog, Buddy, and keeping him for over 2 years. John says he only took Buddy because Irene was neglecting the dog.
Now, maybe your compassion for the dog was mixed with a little animus towards the plaintiff, but you have no right to take her animal. And then for 2.5 years, you lied to her. If you thought there was a legitimate question of animal neglect, you have the right to call authorities and say, this animal is being neglected. You didn't do that. How come?
Well, at that particular time, before that period, she was still around with the dog. Up to the last of 3 to 4 weeks, I didn't see her that much anymore.
So if you didn't see her that much anymore,
I mean, as far as
the few times that you went by the house, sir, and the dog was there, why didn't you call animal control and say, look at this dog. It's all skin and bones. It hasn't been fed. It hasn't been watered. It's being neglected. Then they would have taken the dog. And in all probability, if you were a person who was responsible, you might have gotten her dog. But the dog wasn't skin and bones, right, sir?
No, he wasn't.
No. So the question is, now what do we do with Buddy? The dog is her dog. Yes. The dog belongs to her. He brought the dog to you? Madam.
Yes.
Why don't you step up here? You're his mother.
Yes.
When he brought the dog to you, what did he say?
Just about what he told you, that he felt that the dog wasn't being treated right because there wasn't any food or water. And so he said that he felt that we could take care of the dog better, and he hadn't seen Irene. He didn't know where she was, so...
And you didn't question it?
No, I didn't.
Did you tell her you took the dog?
No.
So you've become attached to the dog, too?
Absolutely.
But the dog is hers.
I agree.
So it has to go back to her. Yes. Period. That's the end of discussion.
All right.
Yes, sir.
You know how she said it was being treated well? Her backyard was way worse than what we have now. They have apples all over the ground, not even grass.
I don't even have an apple tree anymore.
Well, they got rocks.
Tell me your name.
Jason.
Jason.
Pimentel.
Do you think this dog knows who you are?
Yeah.
Let me see. Let the dog go.
Come on, buddy. Come here, buddy. Come here. Yes. Oh, yes. No, that's okay, boy. That's okay, boy. It's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Don't hit him too hard, Jason.
Oh, yeah. That's okay, Bobby's. That's okay, Bobby dog. Yes, it is.
Now, the question is, Mr. Lemos.
Stay.
You did the absolute wrong thing, and I think that you traumatized not only the plaintiff, she's an adult.
Dog.
But these two little kids, they weren't even there. That's all right. The dog's going to have to get used to, let the dog go. The dog's going to have to get used to your family all over again. But you traumatized two little children who were really innocents, and you traumatized them because you were annoyed that their mother wasn't moving out of your house fast enough.
True.
So,
The kids weren't there the whole time.
for want of a better word, sir, you have to be punished. So I'm going to punish you to the tune of $2,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. Step out, please. Out the back door to your right.
Basically, instead, it all boils down to he's a mommy's boy. He has a brand new house. He's been living with mommy for the past 2.5 years.
No, I
and him and
haven't.
I've been broke up. Yes, you
No,
have.
I'm back at my house.
And now the next case.
Parties on Innocente versus Sierra Olivia. Step forward, please.
Actress Celeste Innocenti is suing playwright Jesus Sierra Oliva. She claims after he promised her the lead role in a play he was producing, the role was given to another actress. He says it was up to the director.
This is a case about principle. Plus $100.
Exactly.
What's your first name?
Celeste.
Celeste. And your first name, sir?
Jesus.
You are an actress by profession, or is that your avocation?
Well, I wish I earned more money at it, but it is my profession.
Okay. According to this complaint, Jesus offered you a role in a play that he was producing, correct?
Yes, correct.
A big role.
Mm-hmm.
And that play was to be performed at a small theater in September, I believe, September 13th and 14th.
12th and 13th.
According to you, sometime later, he advised you that you didn't have the part, and you had to audition for it again.
No, he never advised me that I didn't have the part.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Listen, you say I'm the boss, applesauce. You can pick anybody else you like. Carlotta is spoken for.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Actress Celeste Innocenti is suing playwright Jesus Sierra Oliva. She claims after he promised her the lead role in a play he was producing, the role was given to another actress. He says it was up to the director.
He said you had to audition for it again. He had had some problems with the production.
He didn't say that I had to audition for it again,
What did
Your
he
Honor.
say?
He did say that auditions would be held. He left a message on my machine in late August, and then when I called him back, he said there were so many new parts and so many people had dropped out. He asked about my availability at that time, and then I told him, well, I'd been working on it for 2 months, and you have to understand, he initially called me to audition. He had gotten my name, and he said, well, you know, I heard you were a very good actress, and I would like you to audition. So at that point, having invested all this time and energy, I said yes, and in fact, the venue had been changed to a better theater, a more inconvenient date, but then I did say, yes, I was still interested.
So you did go and audition again?
Well, no, the director, finally he had gotten a new director because the previous director had dropped out. So the director never did answer my calls or return my calls, and finally I did get a hold of him, and he said, well, rehearsals will begin on next Monday. This was September 1st, Labor Day, and then there will be every Monday and Tuesday until the performance. And then that Friday he called me back and said there were going to be auditions Saturday and Sunday, and I said, excuse me, auditions? I had been working on this role for 2 months, and Jesus had hired me to do this role. And he said, well, then come in and meet me. And then the next morning, being Princess Di's funeral day, I get in there. I was already depressed. I get in. I heard somebody reading for the role, and then I asked Jesus about it, and even then he said, oh, no, you are Mama Carlotta. And then he said, you are the best I've seen so far. And, you know, at that point, the director still didn't, you know...
Ultimately, he chose somebody else, the director.
The director told me that Jesus had never told him that the role was precast.
Okay. So he hired somebody else.
Exactly, yes.
And they had promised you a $100 stipend for this performance.
Yes.
You, sir, according to your answer, had some problems with the original production. Is that right?
Yes, I had problems that my theater, which I had for the 12th and the 13th of September, I thought I had already made the deal with the director of the Chicano Center. And it resulted that at the end, he said on July, when I called him, Jesus, I'm very sorry. I didn't put you on the list your event is not in my calendar. So I felt terrible because I had already promised my actors that they would be performing on the 12th and the 13th.
Now let me stop you right there, sir. When you say you promised your actors, this is one of the actors that you promised.
I did.
Now, and then you went out and had to hire a new place and a new director.
That's right.
So you hired a new director.
Yes.
You did the hiring. Why
did.
didn't you tell the new director that this lady had the part?
I told him that I already had 6 actors. I had already lost 6 of them. And the director insisted on being himself Maximilian, or else he would not be part of the production. And then it seemed to me like everybody wanted to be Maximilian, all the men wanted to be Maximilian, and all the ladies wanted to be Carlotta.
Just a minute. Am I correct, sir, that you had already promised her the role of Carlotta?
Yes.
Well, so if everybody wanted to be Carlotta, what difference does it make? This is your production. Why didn't you just say to the director, you can cast anybody else that you want for other roles?
Yes.
But I already have promised this lady, and for 2 months she's been working on the role of Carlotta. Is there any reason why you didn't say that?
Because I did not ask Celeste to work on the role for 2 months. I told everybody that their commitment would be for only the 2 first weeks of September.
For the performance?
For the performance
No,
only.
just a second.
And the rehearsals.
But she's an actress, so she was working on the part. Did you give her the script?
Yes, I did.
So she had the script from the time you first promised her the role.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
As far as I'm concerned, sir, you had an obligation when you hired a new director to tell him that at least one of these parts was already promised to this lady, because you had given your word to her. She, as a result of your promise, went out and performed her job, which was to familiarize herself with the role, to work on it for a couple of months. It was within your control to see to it that she got the part, because the director was also your employee. And you could have said to the director, pick anybody else you like, sir. Carlotta's spoken for. You didn't do that.
I did not, because he said, I am going to choose the actors.
Listen, you say I'm the boss, applesauce. You can pick anybody else you like. Carlotta is spoken for. The commitment was for $100?
Yes, it was.
That's what you're suing for?
Yes.
Vindicated, $100 for the plaintiff.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And
cái chi phí khi mà chúng ta du học tại đất nước Ba Lan bằng tiếng Anh thì sẽ hết bao nhiêu tiền? Thì đối với học phí của các trường đại học tại đất nước Ba Lan thì dự biệt tiếng Anh sẽ rơi vào 3.250 cho đến 3.500 trên một năm. Đối với bằng cử nhân thì sẽ rơi vào 3.500 cho đến 5.000 euro trên một năm. Đối với hệ thạc sĩ sẽ rơi vào 3.500 cho đến 6.000 trên một năm. Và đối với bằng tiến sĩ thì sẽ từ 3.500 euro trên một năm. Còn đối với các cái chi phí nhà ở, ký túc xá thì rơi vào khoảng 60 cho đến 150 trên một tháng. Còn đối với tiền thuê nhà ở bên ngoài thì sẽ rơi vào từ 170 cho đến 320 euro trên một tháng. Còn đối với các cái chi phí sinh hoạt tại đất nước Ba Lan thì cái chi phí sinh hoạt trung bình của các bạn sinh viên quốc tế tại đất nước Ba Lan thì bao gồm các cái chi phí như là ăn uống, đi lại, các cái chi phí cá nhân thì sẽ dao động từ 300 cho đến 450 euro trên mỗi tháng. Và cái chi phí dao động sẽ phụ thuộc vào cái quy mô trường học và cái nhu cầu chi tiêu của các bạn sinh viên. Khi mà chúng ta có một cái ước mơ đi du học thì về cái vấn đề đầu tiên mà tất cả các bạn sinh viên quan tâm đó là về cái chi phí và cái môi trường học tập tại đất nước mà chúng ta muốn theo để du học. Vì vậy trước khi muốn đi du học một đất nước nào đó thì chúng ta cần phải tìm hiểu thật kỹ